What's up, everybody? Nick Whalen here from RotoWire. I'm joined by Jim Coventry, Jeff Erickson. In this video, we're going to give you one undervalued player, one overvalued player, and one rookie we're each targeting in fantasy drafts this season. Let's get right to it, guys. We'll start with you, Jeff. Give us a player, any position you found to be underrated relative to ADP.
Underrated. Let's go. Josh Jacobs, Green Bay Packers, RB 13 in the NFFC RotoWire Online Championship. That's around pick 43. That's basically the fourth round. I think he's at worst a third round player. Although I will say this, so many of us are going running back hero, anchor running back, or even zero running back, and that's why receivers are getting pushed up and running backs are getting pushed down. I get it. That said, I think Jacobs is a 3-down player on a team that's going to be very good. I understand maybe it's not going to be ground and pound this year, but I still think he's going to get a good amount of volume. I think the skills are still there on a good team, which means lots of goal line opportunities. He's clearly going to be the goal line guy. A.J. Dillon stinks at that. So he's really good at the goal line. A.J. Dillon is not. He's available there in the fourth round. Give me Josh Jacobs often.
All right, there we have it. Jeff going with Josh Jacobs as his most underrated player. Jim, where are you going?
What the heck is the fantasy community doing, pushing DJ Moore down to wide receiver 21? He was much higher earlier in the offseason, and then the Keenan Allen, the Romo, Dunze smoke get blowing, and all of a sudden Moore is going down, down, down. I don't think people realize just how good DJ Moore is. He, from a talent and production standpoint, is literally one of the real-life top 12 receivers in the league. He can win short, medium, deep. When the ball is placed in his hands, he is a running back with the ball in his hands. He can beat double teams. 1,364 yards last year, and that was with Tyson Bagent playing about 5 games. Moore has never had good quarterback play. You go back to his days in Carolina, yet Moore has at least 1,157 yards in 4 of 5 seasons, and now he gets Caleb Williams. And yeah, I get it. Keenan Allen averaged 10 targets a game the last few years, but he was the only game in town most of the time for Justin Herbert. Great possession plus receiver, but Moore, the real deal, will be playing full time, doesn't miss games, hasn't missed a game in 3 years. So give me all the DJ Moore I can handle.
And the Bears agree with you. Just look what they did contractually. They gave Moore the contract. Keenan Allen's on a 1-year deal, basically. This is indicative of their plan.
All right, I like it, guys. Josh Jacobs and DJ Moore. I'll tell you, I thought about going Jake Ferguson here. I really did. But when push comes to shove, I'm going back to my guy. You know I like him. Jaxon, Smith-Njigba out in Seattle. His ADP at the NFFC, guys, is actually up a full round in the last month. This time in July, he was going about pick 95 overall. He's now up to 83.5 in the last week. I don't care. I still think there's some value here. JSN, clearly a number 3 option in Seattle last season. I think he moves up to that clear number 2 role this year behind DK Metcalf. I'm also expecting Tyler Lockett to take a step back. He turns 32 in a month, guys. I think this is the year the cliff comes for Tyler Lockett. As we know, Seattle, new coaching staff, new offensive coordinator, and Ryan Grubb should be able to unlock JSN in new ways. Grubb's already been using a ton of pre-snap motion, a ton of play action so far in the preseason. Those are very good signs for an offense that really struggled in terms of pace last season. Seahawks were dead last in offensive pace. They were dead last in number of plays run. I think we're going to see a lot more 12 personnel with Jaxon Smith-Njigba this season. Should be a more fantasy-friendly situation for him overall. Last year, guys, he finished as the wide receiver 48 in PPR, but from week 7 onward, he was the wide receiver 35. And right now, even with that jump in ADP, he's going as the wide receiver 40 at the NFFC. So I think you're getting him at close to your floor, and you'll see him go quite a bit later in casual leagues. At CBS, for example, he's going on average at pick 112 overall. I think that's a great value for a guy I see as a high-end number 2 in Seattle. And we forget, he was a first-round pick last season. He was the first wide receiver off the board in that 2023 draft.
Yeah, that 7th percentile average depth of target, those days are gone. Wheels up on Smith-Njigba.
All right, guys, before we get into our overrated players, if you're enjoying this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel if you're not already. We're going to keep rolling out a ton of fantasy football videos leading up to week 1. We'll have a ton of content coming your way throughout the entire NFL season. Those likes, those subscriptions, they help us out a ton. So thank you, guys. All right, back to you, Jeff. Give us one of your most overrated players, any position in fantasy football this season.
Okay, so Michael Pittman's skills are strong. I like Michael Pittman as a player. I question the volume, and I just kind of question where he's going relative to other wide receivers. I wonder, first of all, a little bit about how much, they added Donnie Mitchell, how much he cuts into his volume. Richardson's back for a full year, and that's not necessarily a good thing because Richardson's going to pull the ball down and run a little bit more. Jonathan Taylor's there for a full season. This is a team that's going to still want to run the ball. And I think we had those Gardner Minshew shootouts last year. I don't think that's going to happen as often with the Colts this season. So you look at some of the receivers that are going after Pittman: Mike Evans, DJ Moore, as Jim was talking about, Devonta Smith. I take all those guys ahead of Pittman. Last year, you're probably getting him at like wide receiver 22, 23, 24. Now he's wide receiver 16. Good player, just going a little too early.
All right, I'm with you on that. Jim, where are you going?
So I am going to say this. I understand the value of the running quarterback, and it cannot be understated. However, Jayden Daniels is going as the quarterback 10 in most drafts. And here are my concerns. Yes, he has game-breaking speed. He's a phenomenal runner. He did weigh 210 at the combine. Seriously, look at this guy. 190, maybe. And he never tried to avoid a hit in college. Okay, it's cool when boys are hitting you. If he does that in the NFL, there's going to be men hitting him. He is not getting up for many of those hits. I don't know how much he's able to run with his style unless he drastically changes it. And that offensive line in Washington, it does not project to be good at all. He's going to be under a lot of duress. As a passer, sure, 40 touchdowns last year. But this cat has been playing since 2019, and he never had more than 17 passing touchdowns in a season. So was it a man among boys last year, dominating them with a great supporting cast and a great system, or did he really figure it out? I'm skeptical.
All right, Jim, you're going with a quarterback. I'm going with an overrated quarterback as well. CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans. And first of all, I'm almost always a wait on QB guy. So that automatically kind of keeps me away from CJ Stroud and that upper tier of quarterbacks. I mean, I could see the upside with Josh Allen, who was the QB1 by a good 2.5 fantasy points per game last season. You can see it with Jalen Hurts and Lamar, even Patrick Mahomes coming on for a bounce back season. But with CJ Stroud, I mean, he's given you almost no rushing upside, right? That's the big difference between him and those other elite quarterbacks, especially Allen Hurts and Jaxon. He's going to need to have an unreal passing season in order to beat that QB5 ADP. Now, can he meet ADP? Can he be the QB5? Yeah, absolutely. But when I draft a quarterback, guys, I want to feel like I'm getting value. I don't want to feel like I'm just taking the guy who can finish at that spot. I want to feel like that there's a little bit of room for him to climb. And, best case for me with CJ Stroud is he does meet that ADP. I don't really see him finishing as the QB2 or the QB3. I don't think that upside is there, barring injury to some of those other names. So to me, like, Stroud should be going in a similar zone to Jordan Love, who was a better fantasy player than CJ Stroud last season. I think he should be going closer to Dak Prescott. Both of those guys were better per game than Stroud in 2023. Even you go all the way down to Jared Goff, who goes, 60, 70 picks after CJ Stroud. He averaged fewer than 1 fantasy point per game, less than CJ Stroud did last season. And I get it. There's room for progression here. There should be some more touchdowns on the table for CJ Stroud. He could approach 5,000 yards. He's a guy who missed a couple of games last season. But the other part of the equation here is opportunity cost. I mean, what are you leaving on the board at that point in the draft if you're taking CJ Stroud? He's going in the 40s right now in CBS leagues, guys. And at that point, I want to be hammering wide receivers. I want to maybe get a second running back. You could get one of the top tight ends in the draft at that point. There's just too much skill position talent on the board at that point in the draft for me to justify taking a quarterback who, in my mind, has almost no chance to finish as the QB1, QB2, QB3.
Does your opinion change when you're playing like the NFFC where it's 6 points for a passing touchdown?
Yeah, I mean, 6 points per passing touchdown to me. I mean, that's where you can see the upside with Stroud because 35 plus touchdowns is in play here, right? I mean, This is arguably the best receiving core in the NFL. And, I think Joe Mixon, brings some pass catching to this offense as well. That's an upgrade over Dameon Pierce. I think Dalton Schultz is still going to be a factor in the red zone. So you could sell me on it in the NFFC, but if you're in a 4 point per passing touchdown league, if you're in a league, that has premiums for rushing quarterbacks, I just don't see it with CJ Stroud. I'm on board with him as the QB5. It's more about where you have to make that pick.
This is ultimately still a Bobby Slowick offense that has roots in the 49er system. They're going to have 21 personnel, 2 running backs on the field, Andrew Beck, lead blocker. They ran a lot last year despite not being able to run. You guys mentioned earlier, Mixon's there. Mixon keeps an offense on schedule. They are going to run quite a bit. So I am with you guys on the CJ Stroud idea. Maybe the upside's not where we'd like it to be.
All right, fellas, let's talk some rookies. We'll finish out here. One rookie at any point in the draft that you found yourself targeting, especially over these last couple of weeks. We're starting to see these guys in preseason. We're getting more of a sample. Jeff, back to you. Who's the rookie that you've been targeting?
I've been targeting Brian Thomas on the Jaguars. I'm like currying favor with my host. Always a smart play. Get more airtime that way. I like not just how he looks, but also I like where he's being deployed. I like that he's on the field with the first team constantly. 2 receiver sets and 3 receiver sets, so it's not just 11 personnel. That's one thing that I think that's huge for rookies is sometimes is like, are they going to be on there when it's not just, obvious passing down? I know he's still probably a big play guy first, and people are concerned about the volume he saw at LSU last year. I just see it as just he happened to be with neighbors, and that's no insult to Thomas. He's still a first-round talent, and he's playing like it already. The reviews have been fantastic in camp. He's wide receiver 46 in the last week in the NFFC, behind the likes of Jamison Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown. I'll take Thomas over all 3 of those guys.
All right, Jim, what rookie are you targeting?
I'm looking for Blake Corum of the Los Angeles Rams, going about running back 40 off the board. And the case I have to make starts away from Corum. First of all, Kyren Williams missed 7 games as a rookie, missed 5 games last year, and nobody talks about the broken hand he suffered in the wild card round, which fortunately for him, it wasn't a regular season game where he'd miss more time. But why was Kyren Williams so successful last year? Because as a rookie, when he was on the field, he wasn't. They tried to get him on the field. He wasn't a thing. Well, Sean McVay, as always, a step ahead of the rest of the league. When the league was getting better at defending zone runs, McVay went what we call the downhill duo run scheme. So perfectly fit for it. The offensive line, the 3 interior linemen weigh like 1,000 pounds for the Rams. They were designed to run that way. Kyren Williams had almost 100 scrimmage yards per game, right place, right time. Well, injury history, Blake Corum comes in. 83rd pick in the draft. That is not an inconsequential pick. And Corum, from a skill standpoint, projects to be significantly more talented than Kyren Williams. So if it's just the system that caused Williams to work, Corum, as a better player, should be able to step in and get significant work from the jump. Again, the coaches are going to want to preserve Williams because of the injury history. And Corum, if he thrives in that role, could really push Williams into more of an ancillary role. And that wouldn't surprise me if that happened within a month of the beginning of the season.
All right. I like both of those guys. I've talked a lot about Kamani Vidal, who I thought looked great in the preseason week 2 game this past weekend. I think he eventually finds a role with the LA Chargers. He's a guy you could basically get for free at the end of your draft, even in competitive leagues. You might not even have to draft him in more casual formats. But I don't want to talk about Kamani Vidal for the sake of differentiation here, guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is the Nick Whalen get 2 for the price of 1 method here.
Oh, yeah. The old diversion tactic. I'm going with Jayden Polk, guys, of the New England Patriots. We are starting to hear a ton of positive buzz on Jayden Polk. 2nd round pick out of Washington. You think back to that Washington team last year and your mind goes right to Michael Penix and Rome Odunze, right? I think Jayden Polk was overshadowed by Rome Odunze, a top 10 pick in this year's draft. But Polk himself put up well over 1,150 yards, 9 touchdowns, had a huge game against Texas in the national semifinal. If you listen to these whispers out in New England, guys, it really seems like there's a good chance that Jayden Polk could begin the year in a starting role. I don't know if that makes him the true wide receiver 1, but I think he has a path to at least being the wide receiver 2. Now, obviously, this is a team that lacks talent at wide receiver, really lacks talent all over the place. Not fired up about this offense, but I like what I've seen from Drake May in a limited sample so far. I don't think it's going to be too long until we see him as a starting quarterback. And, part of the general malaise around this New England offense means you're getting a discount on just about every Patriots player. I mean, we're looking at an ADP right now of 164 overall for Jayden Polk. That makes him the wide receiver 68. Again, this is a guy like Vidal that you're basically getting him for free. I like his upside at that point in the draft more than just about any wide receiver who's available in that zone. Even in a shaky offense, if he can emerge as that wide receiver 2 or even the wide receiver 1 at some point later in the season, I think there's going to be some value there in Jayden Polk.
Yeah, the draft cost, like you said, Nick, makes it perfect to select him there. There's no risk at all. The concern is the offensive line in the training camp appears to be a train wreck. And if that's the case, it's a problem. But like you said, there's no risk. And if you're the number 1 receiver in an offense going that late, there has to be volume.
Yes, the number 1 receiver in any offense, even the New England Patriots offense, we should remind you, does have some fantasy value.